she opened her heart to a struggling cowboy and his son. Discover the hidden millionaire inside. Sarah stared at the wilted daisies on the counter, their faded petals mirroring her dreams as the register's silence screamed at her. In a small Texas town, her flower shop felt more like a crumbling facade than a blooming business. Every morning she poured her heart into this place, but with each passing day, the bills mounted like thorny vines, constricting her will to survive. A flicker of doubt ignited within her. Could she possibly sustain this passion, or was she just grasping at fading petals? She took a deep breath, forcing a smile for a customer walking in, while her heart raced with a blend of desperation and determination. "Just another day," she whispered to herself, but the words felt like a lie. Her mind swirled with contradictory emotions. She longed to keep the shop alive, but every expense felt like a nail in her coffin. What if today was the day her lifeline unraveled? What if, in her struggle for survival, she lost herself completely? The weight of uncertainty was almost too much to bear, tightening in her chest like a band. As she cleaned the counter, her thoughts drifted to Jake. She had only met him once, across a coffee-drenched table at the local diner. Those calloused hands spoke of battles fought and scars earned, but deep down she recognized a yearning echoing her own, a search for hope amidst the chaos of life. The spark of connection nagged at her, tempting her to reach beyond her self-imposed boundaries. Could she take a risk, support him and his boy Cody, even if it threatened to drain what remained of her business? The thought felt like a volcano simmering beneath the surface, waiting for an opportune moment to erupt. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As she returned to her tasks, the memory of Jake's worn, gravelly voice lingered, accompanied by the image of Cody's hopeful eyes watching his father. Sarah's heart wrenched with sympathy. What kind of parent would she be if she turned away from them just to safeguard her fragile business? But could she truly afford to bring them into her life? The dilemma coiled tighter around her heart, a snake ready to strike. Just as she began to visualize a bustling shop filled with the vibrant blooms of communal support, a shattering revelation sliced through the illusion. What if the very roots of her ambition were rooted in something far more desirable than coexistence? What if wealth and success led Jake to abandon his true self? In that moment, beneath the warm sun filtering through the window, Sarah's thoughts twisted frantically. Would she lose him? Or worse, would his newfound prospects tarnish their connection? She felt the tension build like a vast storm brewing on the horizon, a wave of fear edging closer. Would the very fabric of her existence unravel the moment he grasped at salvation? A chilling tremor whispered through her, reminding her of the stakes on the line. As the wind kicked up outside, stirring the petals around her, she stood at a precipice, an intersection of heart and ambition. The familiar weight of her flower shop pressed down on her, each unresolved question amplifying her unease. Would she betray herself and the beauty she believed in? In this vast emotional wilderness, uncertainty reigned supreme. The blooms of hope and the weeds of worry intertwined with an unyielding grip. As the late afternoon sun filtered through the dusty glass of her shop, Sarah's mind wrestled with a decision that loomed large, like the looming shadows cast by the setting sun. Each petal she arranged felt like another fragment of her heart being pressed into the delicate floral display. The wilting daisies no longer resembled mere decorations. They embodied her fading hopes, the remnants of a lost dream that she couldn't shake off. Her gaze drifted to the road outside, to the distant outline of Jake's truck slowly rumbling toward town. The sight sent a jolt of adrenaline through her. This was the man who, just by existing, threatened to uproot her expectations and prompt her to confront the unspoken desires she buried beneath her responsibilities. What was it about him that stirred something deep within her, a longing for connection amidst her solitude? Uncertain of what course to take, Sarah habitually turned to her shop's financial ledger, as if seeking solace in the numbers. But they only depicted an alarming truth. Her business was on the verge of collapse. Each inked figure seemed to mock her, reminding her of the fragile line she walked between passion and pragmatism. The clock was ticking, and the grasping vines of worry were seeping deeper into her life. However, as she flipped through the pages, she stumbled upon a collection of notes she had made earlier in the year, ideas that swirled around events and partnerships that could potentially revive her shop. Ideas that had been buried beneath her daily struggles now came rushing back. Perhaps she had overlooked opportunities for collaboration, for reaching out to others for support, rather than isolating herself. Maybe, just maybe, the answer sat in the balance between her aspirations and the companionship she feared to embrace. Determined to excavate the potential within her plan, she picked up the phone and dialed an old contact who once offered to host a flower arranging workshop. After a moment of anxious hesitation, she found her courage.
Hi, Amy. I was wondering if you're still interested in collaborating on an event together. The conversation flowed, and as they spoke, ideas of a spring blossom party blossomed into vivid reality. Each new thought ignited a spark of enthusiasm, and she felt a shift within herself. Perhaps the darkness she saw creeping in wasn't insurmountable. Maybe this was an opportunity not only to save her business, but also to welcome Jake and Cody into her world. With every moment, the walls she had consciously erected began to crumble, revealing an urge to connect deeply, not just with them, but with the community she feared had long forgotten her. What if she melded her principles with her passions? Could a workshop incorporate flower arrangements that told stories, intertwined experiences of her life with others, including Jake and Cody? It was thrilling, yet frightening. As she hung up the phone, a wave of exhilaration mingled with apprehension washed over her. In that moment, she realized she was standing on the edge of something new, a possibility of transformation not just for her shop, but for herself. Gone was the weight of resignation. It was replaced by a budding resolve, a force she hadn't realized she possessed. Yet as dusk descended, encasing her shop in a tranquil glow, Sarah knew that inviting Jake into her life would not be without its complications. While she faced her fears, the foundation of uncertainty still trembled at the edges of her mind. The connection she craved might come at a price she hadn't fully considered. As she locked the front door and began to arrange her shop for the upcoming day, an unexpected thought crept in, unsettling yet enticing. Would Jake see her as she was, or as someone who could help him forge a new path altogether? The next day would unfold new possibilities, but the question loomed larger. Could she allow herself to truly open her heart, or would the impending storm of her decisions wash it all away? The morning light hit the shop's windows like a gentle nudge, ushering in a new day filled with potential. Sarah stood behind the counter, various blooms surrounding her like paint on an artist's palette. Today wasn't just any other day. It was the first step toward reclaiming her business and perhaps even her life. With each arrangement she created, Sarah found herself surrendering to the ebb and flow of inspiration. She explored new techniques, combining vibrant peonies with rustic eucalyptus, allowing her creativity to blossom uninhibitedly. The shop, which once felt burdened by her doubts, now thrummed with the rhythm of her enthusiasm. She listened to the soft murmurs of the flowers, guiding her toward a vision larger than her current reality. Mid-revelation, her phone vibrated on the counter. It was Amy. Sarah's heartbeat quickened, a mix of anticipation and dread. "Hey, Amy, I'm excited to talk more about our plans." As they shared their thoughts, energy infused the conversation, an infectious spirit binding them. They discussed not
only the logistics of the workshop, but also immersive experiences that highlighted storytelling through flowers, their meanings and the emotions behind them. Ideas tumbled forth like petals caught in the wind, each one exciting and haunting at the same time. After hanging up, Sarah paused, the enormity of what lay ahead washing over her. She envisioned the workshop sparsely populated, or worse, a total flop. The thought slipped like oil through her fingers, reminding her of the impending challenge ahead. Could she really take this leap and trust enough to draw in others? Later that afternoon, when the doorbell chimed, Sarah inhaled sharply, turning to see Jake step inside. He was as captivating as she remembered, though today he wore a mask of uncertainty etched with the burdens of his life. "Hey there, Sarah," he greeted, his voice almost a whisper. "Jake, perfect timing." Her pulse quickened. "I was just planning an event that it could use your expertise." Jake's brow furrowed slightly. "Oh, you need help with flowers?" "No," she chuckled, immediately sensing the miscommunication. "I thought you might want to share some tips on floral arrangement while talking about your own stories. It's about the experiences behind the flowers. I want to highlight the connections people have with nature, the stories that intertwine us with what we create." Jake's surprise rendered him silent, yet she saw something flicker in his expression. Doubt? Hesitance? Whatever it was, it ignited courage within her. "Think about it. As father and son, you'll be an anchor in this workshop. It's not just about flowers. It's about the roots we all have." A drop of tension left Jake's shoulders. I've never thought of it that way." His hesitance shifted to curiosity, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability he rarely showed. "Maybe I could help." As they brainstormed together, Sarah felt something shift within her, too. Here was an opportunity to make a difference not only in her business, but in Jake's life. She had the power to make an impact, and that realization felt intoxicating. But just as excitement surged, dread prickled at her conscience. With every moment they spent together, each flicker of laughter and the warmth of their connection, she sensed the looming shadows of her own heart, unearthing old fears. Would she be able to keep the walls she had built from collapsing under the weight of her emerging feelings? As the afternoon sun slanted across the floor, Sarah's heart raced. She was at a turning point, one that promised transformation, yet threatened to unravel everything she had ever known. There was a thrilling danger in vulnerability. The risk of opening her heart had never felt so tangible. What if the storm she feared would not wash her away, but instead cleanse the heavy doubts that anchored her? "Let's make this workshop extraordinary," Sarah said, a fierce determination edging her voice. "Let's create something that connects." And as Jake nodded, a new chapter unfolded, a chapter where Sarah had to balance her budding feelings with her desire to foster change. But as they plotted their next steps, a sudden thought loomed large. Could she protect her heart while embracing the unknown? Sarah awoke with a mix of exhilaration and unease. The workshop was only days away, and she'd barely scratched the surface of her preparations. The visions that danced in her mind felt luminous, yet daunting. How could she transform the ideas sparking within her into a tangible experience for those she hoped to connect with? As the morning light spilled into the shop once more, she prepared for the day ahead with a fierce resolve. The daisies stood proud in their pots, as if urging her to emulate their simplicity and beauty in her arrangements. Each bloom seemed to whisper that a leap of faith was needed. She had promised Jake a meeting, a chance to solidify their collaboration and ignite her vision into something real. Yet part of her trembled at the thought of vulnerability, the weight of expectations gnawing at her confidence. What if she wasn't enough? What if her hopes for this workshop faltered beneath the weight of a single misstep? Amidst her swirling thoughts, the door swung open. Jake entered, holding onto a notebook tightly, its pages marked with hasty sketches and ideas. "I didn't want to come empty-handed," he said, his voice carrying an earnestness that sent a soothing wave through her. Sarah smiled, though inside she felt a tug of war between excitement and fear. "I'm glad you're here. I've been thinking." As they settled into a corner table, she shared her more polished ideas, detailing the emotional tapestry she wished to weave through flower arrangement. How a single bloom could represent memories, joy, or even healing. But each time she looked at Jake, a flicker of worry crossed his face. Instead of adrenaline, an anchor of trepidation settled in her stomach. "It's important to get the logistics right before we dive into the creativity," Jake suggested. His analytical mind sought order, a contrast to her spontaneous spirit. "This isn't just about flowers and structures," Sarah replied, frustration simmering beneath her clarity. She needed him to understand that the heart of this workshop lay beyond the technicalities. Her vision called for authenticity, a brave foray into the vulnerable spaces where their own stories dwelled. Jake softened, a shadow of doubt lifting. "I can share my story, my relationship with flowers, but it's complex. You want authenticity. I fear it'll be too heavy for others." There it was, the crack in the armor. Jake's admission resonated with her own unsteady feelings. "Every story has layers, Jake," she urged, leaning forward. "It's about the beauty of being open, and about being brave enough to share it, even when it feels raw." As the session unfolded, curiosity began to tether them together. They swapped stories about their pasts. His childhood moments with his father during spring blooms, her memories of her mother's garden. The laughter flowed freely, but the nerves still lingered. Vulnerability was a wily specter that threatened to unsettle them both. When their conversation turned toward marketing the workshop, Sarah hesitated. She questioned her approach. Would her vision truly resonate with others? "I just want to impact people, to help them rediscover what flowers mean to them," she confessed. "But what if they don't connect with it?" "What if they do?" Jake countered, the fire of determination returning to his voice. "Maybe this workshop can be the step we both need, for you to step out of your fears, and for me to step into my past. It could change more lives than just ours." Something shifted within Sarah. Jake's determination fortified her own. Together they could embrace the unknown, tackle the uncomfortable feelings gnawing at their hearts. With every word exchanged, she stepped closer to growing into the leader she craved to be. As they finalized plans, an unexpected thrill surged through Sarah, pushing aside the shadows of doubt that loomed threateningly in the corners of her mind. In that moment, they were not just two souls navigating uncertain futures. They were allies in a journey that beckoned them both toward growth. But just as the excitement bubbled, an unsettling thought crept back in. Was she ready to relinquish the walls she had built, to explore the depths of her connection with Jake? "Let's get through this workshop," she said, steadying herself. "Then we can see where it leads." Yet as Jake nodded, an unspoken tension lingered in the air, hinting at an anchor of unresolved feelings waiting to resurface. With the workshop ahead, set to redirect both of their journeys, Sarah marveled at the uncertainty that lay within. What new paths would they uncover together? Sarah's heart raced as she left the cafe, the electric energy of her conversation with Jake crackling in the air around her. Yet the closer she got to her shop, the more she wrestled with the doubts swirling in her mind. Could she really build something meaningful from the workshop they planned? The stakes felt higher than ever, a mixture of aspiration and fear coiling tightly in her chest.
She stepped inside the vibrant blooms, their brightness almost overwhelming after the muted color of her anxiety. These flowers echoed her ambitions, and yet they also mirrored her vulnerability. Every arrangement she crafted now took on a weight. Would her participants see the depth she wished to convey, or would they merely glance at the aesthetics and move on? She immersed herself in preparation, but each bundle of flowers came with a new layer of self-doubt. The logistics of the workshop started looming large in her mind, overpowering the creative spirit that had initially ignited her passion. Sarah stood by the work table, snipping stems, and buried under the pressure, she found herself mentally tabulating every detail they had discussed, veering from excitement into worry. Hours passed unnoticed, and just as the sun began to set behind the neighboring buildings, the doorbell chimed. It was Jake again. He strolled in.
"I thought we could talk about the promotion," Jake said, but Sarah sensed a shift. Their previous dynamic felt heavier, as if the laughter from earlier had been swallowed by deeper implications. With her heart pounding, she nodded. "Okay, let's do it." As they mapped out their promotional strategies, the discussion veered toward the personal once more. "Have you ever thought about sharing more about why flowers matter to you?" Jake inquired, his tone cautious but probing. An uncomfortable silence settled in, one that amplified her apprehensions. Sarah hesitated, bracing herself. "It's something I've thought about. My mom used to say that flowers can hold memories. She had a way of turning gardens into stories. Sometimes I feel that spaces, whether through flowers or arrangements, can communicate what's often left unsaid." Jake observed her intently. "Then why not let that be part of the workshop? Not only your memories, but also encourage others to tap into their stories." "Because," her voice faltered, "what if it's too personal? What if it overwhelms them?" Each word felt like a confession, exposing her raw nerves. "Or what if it connects them profoundly?" Jake countered gently, his gaze serious yet encouraging. "You won't know unless you take that leap, right? It isn't just about creating a beautiful arrangement, it's about creating a visceral experience." A pulse of rebellion surged within Sarah, a mixture of anger and fear. Why should she bear the weight of emotional exposure? Did she have the resilience to craft this experience while maintaining control over her story? "Easier said than done, Jake. Sharing your vulnerabilities is a risk, and my past, it's muddy." "I know," he acknowledged with a nod, "but our stories are intertwined in this endeavor, whether we like it or not. If you want this to resonate, you have to be willing to be real with yourself first." Each statement coaxed her toward an inner truth, one that resonated yet felt terrifying. Who would she have to become to allow her heart to open like the petals of the very flowers she adored? An idea began to blossom in her mind, a way to share her story but keep her emotions in check. "Maybe I can frame it differently. I could guide conversations during the workshop that encourage stories without feeling like I'm putting my life on display." "That's the spirit," Jake urged, a spark igniting in his eyes. "It's about crafting an environment where we can both be seen without losing ourselves in the process." Sarah absorbed his encouragement, the clouds of insecurity parting just a fraction. Yet shadows still loomed large in the corners of her mind. Would this be enough? As they wrapped up the evening's plans, excitement intertwined with trepidation. This endeavor felt as exhilarating as it was terrifying, and Sarah recognized that the real breakthrough lay in her willingness to confront those fears. "What comes next, Sarah?" Jake asked, a challenge lurking in his question. "Now I'm going to define the narrative I want to share. Every bloom will have a purpose, just like every story." In that moment, a newfound clarity settled within her. Yet, as she stood to leave, she felt an unsettling urge to dig deeper into her own emotional landscape. Why did vulnerability feel like a prison for her? With Jake at her side, was it time to confront that which had always remained unspoken? As she locked up the shop for the night, the weight of the unknown loomed heavy over her. What new inner battles awaited her in the search for authenticity? Would she find the courage to explore the beauty and pain intertwined within her past? The following morning felt markedly different. Daylight broke through the shop windows, illuminating the petals that had seemed to vibrate with unrecognized potential. Sarah moved through the space, her mind racing with thoughts that twisted and turned like the tendrils of the vines hanging above her work table. In the soft golden light, she began to see her reality shift. Taking a deep breath, she immersed herself in the tasks of the day. Each flower she arranged felt like an affirmation of her resolve. She pulled out a notebook, carefully writing down the workshop structure and her vision for the narrative she intended to weave through each session. This time, her notes flowed without the usual hesitation, yet the undercurrent of fear still gripped her. If she were to guide people through their stories, she first had to confront her own. Was she prepared to step forward into that territory? As she contemplated this, a thought crystallized. She could frame her experiences not as a history of sadness, but as a narrative of growth. Perhaps her wounds could be the background to others' healing. Her hands moved deftly, creating an arrangement of sunflowers. With each snip of the stem, she envisioned a participant sitting across from her. What would it mean for them to share their burdens in a safe space? What wisdom could she offer, not just through flowers, but through the richness of her own journey? Before she realized it, an hour had passed. She glanced at the clock and reminded herself that she still had to reach out to the participants who had signed up. She needed to design an invitation that would embody the essence of her workshop, a dance between beauty and vulnerability. Seated at the shop's small desk, she hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard. How did she articulate that delicate balance? Then it hit her, her mom's wisdom. The thought of sharing something so personal stirred her heart, forcing her to confront the core of her fears. What if she was met with indifference? What if her vulnerabilities were dismissed altogether? Yet in the very midst of her agonizing reflections, a flicker of determination ignited. She could not allow the fear of judgment to dictate her choices anymore. Taking a breath, she typed, "Discover the stories blooms can tell." Just as she finished, the door swung open, and in walked a local customer, Mrs. Thompson, known for her keen eye for flowers and her insightful conversations. "Good morning, Sarah. What are you up to today?" Mrs. Thompson inquired, eyeing the sunflowers with appreciation. "Just planning a workshop," Sarah replied, surprised by how easily the words rolled off her tongue this time. "Wonderful! What's the theme?" Mrs. Thompson asked, settling into a nearby chair. For a brief moment, Sarah hesitated, but the spark of her newfound clarity compelled her to share. "It's about storytelling through flowers. I want to encourage people to explore their memories and experiences while creating arrangements." Mrs. Thompson's eyes twinkled with intrigue. "That sounds lovely, dear. How do you plan to guide those conversations?" As they continued talking, Sarah found herself recalling the outline she'd drafted, each aspect becoming more vivid in her mind, energized by the connection with her customer. In that exchange, she recognized the power of shared stories. Yet, lurking beneath the excitement, the gnawing anxiety chiseled away at her resolve. Could she really facilitate a space where others would feel empowered to share? The very idea pushed her boundaries, crumbling the walls she'd built around her emotional truths. After a series of thoughtful discussions with Mrs. Thompson that resulted in encouragement rather than dismissal, Sarah felt lighter, almost as if the weight of her worries temporarily lifted. But as she prepared to close up for the day, the nagging voice returned, whispering doubts about her ability to truly connect with others on a deeper level. As night fell, Sarah sat in the dim light of her shop, an array of blooms surrounding her, each telling a story of resilience.
She flicked through her notes, each thought a tether connecting her to bold ideas. Yet the complexity of her own emotions threatened to pull her back into doubt. The workshop was tomorrow, and as much as she could plan, the unknown loomed just as large. What if she uncovered the truths of her past that she had buried deep? Or what if this endeavor birthed connections she had yearned for, yet feared at the same time? In that silence, she acknowledged her crossroad. Tomorrow would test her. Just how far was she willing to stretch her heart to embrace the stories waiting to intertwine with her own? Would she find a strength she hadn't known existed? As she turned off the lights, she pondered what awaited her. Would she transform not just her business, but her pathways of vulnerability into something profound? Would she find liberation in the authenticity of her journey, as she urged others to do the same? This transformative leap, was she ready for it? And as the night wrapped around the shop, Sarah felt the pulse of possibility at the heart of her uncertainties. The workshop was just a step away, but would she embrace the depth needed to make it extraordinary?
Morning unfolded with a gentle urgency, bringing with it the tremor of anticipation that danced in Sarah's stomach. The day had finally arrived, the day of the workshop. She slipped out of bed, every movement steeped in a mix of excitement and dread. Today would not just another day in the floral shop, it was a moment poised on the edge of transformation. As she prepared for the session, she meticulously arranged the flowers that would serve as both inspiration and medium for expression. Each bloom held a story, every petal vibrated with potential, and she felt as if they were whispering encouragement to her. Yet, amidst the fragrant chaos, doubt lurked, ready to pounce. Would the participants see what she saw? Could she truly create a safe space for others to share? Dressing carefully, she chose a soft dress in shades of green, colors reminiscent of fresh leaves and sprouting life. This would not just be an outer presentation, but an embodiment of her role as a nurturer, guiding individuals through their emotional landscapes. She felt right in her choice until the mirror reflected her uncertainty back at her. Who was she to lead others? Pushing the doubts aside, she mentally rehearsed her opening words, her heart racing with each imaginative scenario. What if someone was particularly guarded? What if they rejected the exercise entirely? Fears wrapped around her like vines, tugging at her spirit. But she refused to let them win. The first participants trickled in, each one greeted with a smile that belied her inner turmoil. As they began to settle into their chairs, Sarah felt a mix of vulnerability and power flood her system. Engaging with them, she sensed their nervous energy echoing her own. Perhaps they too were stepping into uncharted territories today. "Welcome, everyone. I'm so grateful you're here," she opened, her voice steadier than she had anticipated. "Today, we're not just arranging flowers. We're going to explore what they symbolize for us personally. We'll dive into our stories, our histories." A hand shot up. "What if my story is too painful?" a young man admitted, his face flushed with embarrassment. That one question tethered Sarah's heart. In that moment, the weight of her own history pressed down on her. She felt the urge to retreat, to protect herself, but she was here to embrace others. Swallowing her fear, she chose authenticity over hiding. "I completely understand. I once felt that way too. It's okay to acknowledge the pain. It's part of our journey." As she spoke those words, a ripple of confidence surged through her. The workshop, her creation, was unfolding, and she was right at the center. Her vulnerability unleashed a flow of connections. Stories surfaced, shared experiences resonated across the table, and with each shared narrative, Sarah felt herself breaking her own barriers. When the time came for participants to begin their floral arrangements, Sarah moved through the space, guiding, listening, and witnessing. Each flower selected was anchored in a story, a poignant memory brought to life through petals. The shop morphed into a sanctuary where emotions were felt and acknowledged instead of concealed. Yet as the workshop blossomed, an undeniable tension clung to her thoughts. She had nudged others towards vulnerability, but was she ready to delve deeper into her own? Near the end of the session, a participant spoke about her struggle to find connection with her son, reflective of Sarah's own relationships, how her guarded nature might have kept others at arm's length. It dawned on her that she couldn't guide others down these paths without fully embracing her own. The workshop concluded with laughter and tears, gratitude exchanged amongst the group. But as they departed, Sarah felt a lingering weight, an unspoken challenge whispering in her heart. She had taken a step toward opening her soul, but what would it take for her to reveal her full story, the scars, the triumphs, the lessons learned? As silence enveloped the shop post-gathering, Sarah arranged the leftover flowers, beautiful remnants of shared experiences. What would be her next step toward authenticity? Could it lead to reconciliation with herself and those she loved? And within that quiet contemplation, she sensed the approaching storm of her own unfinished narrative, ready to break. Would she find the courage to not just witness others heal, but to embark on her own healing journey? Tomorrow awaited her, the promise of a deeper, rawer exploration of self just around the corner. Would she dare to step into that uncharted land within? The morning sun poured into the floral shop, illuminating the remnants of the previous day's workshop, a testament to vulnerability and growth. As Sarah moved between the tables, a cascade of emotions surged within her, pulling her to reflect on the connections formed and the stories shared. She had stepped into her role as a guide, but now faced an even greater challenge, stepping deeper into her own truth. Her thoughts danced around the faces of the participants, each one etched in her memory, their stories whispering to her heart. The young man grappling with his painful past, the mother longing for her son's love. They had all opened doors to their vulnerability, but Sarah felt a choking hold on her own. What lay behind her carefully constructed walls? The shop's peace was interrupted by the ringing of her phone. It was a familiar number, her brother, Mark, one she hadn't spoken to in months. The split had lingered unhealed between them, a rift widening with time. Uncertainty crept back into her chest. Reflecting on the workshop, she wondered if perhaps nurturing her relationship with her brother was where she should focus her energy. A small act, but perhaps a significant one in the grander scheme of her self-exploration. Taking a breath, she answered the call. "Hey, Mark." "Sarah," he paused. "I've been thinking about you. How are things?" She could almost hear the weight of the silence on the other end. "I held a workshop yesterday. It was transformative, actually." "Glad to hear that. We need to catch up." His sincerity was both exhilarating and terrifying. The last conversation lingered like smoke, a verbal altercation dashed with unresolved accusations. She had prided herself on being the independent sister, but at what cost? The mirror of her brother held a reflection of her guarded nature, something she had concealed for far too long. "Can we meet later?" she found herself asking, her resolve tightening like a vine around her heart. "Yeah, let's do it. I'm free after work." As she hung up, relief and anxiety intermingled, swelling in her chest. This was a chance to dismantle the walls of their mutual silence. The feeling that came next was a subtle thrill of determination. It was about more than just a conversation. It was about facing her fears and earning her heart's longings, connection, understanding, and perhaps a bit of mending. The day unfurled anew, with each passing hour infused with purpose. Sarah busied herself in the floral shop, the vibrant colors of the flowers catalyzing memories of her own struggles with transparency. What had stopped her from being open, she pondered often. Her heart was like a flower, resilient yet needing sunlight to fully bloom. As the afternoon crept to a close, a familiar figure entered the shop, a customer she often saw. A rugged cowboy with stories that hinted at both pain and strength. He had arrived with his young son, whose eyes flickered with curiosity.
Watching them, Sarah felt a surge of empathy. The boy appeared shy, conflicted, while his father tried to project confidence. The relationship mirrored her own, intense, layered, yet delicately hidden. "Do you have a suggestion for something to cheer him up?" the cowboy asked, his voice low and gravelly, his gaze laced with vulnerability. Sarah's heart raced as she sensed another opportunity to extend kindness. How about a bright arrangement full of sunshine and love? Both father and son hesitated, then nodded, dawning change, a flicker of hope. In making this suggestion, she realized she was weaving together her own healing into the lives of others. Later that evening, she stood looking at her reflection in the shop's front window. Tonight's conversation with Mark was looming on the horizon like an approaching storm, intimidating yet necessary. She longed to break through barriers, not just hers, but his too. As she turned to leave, a soft voice broke her reverie. The cowboy had returned, his son cradling a small bouquet, and suddenly she felt the web of interconnected stories all around her. Had she become the catalyst? With a heart racing both from fear and excitement for what lay ahead, she made her way to meet Mark. Would she summon the courage to unwrap her own pain as openly as the flowers she had arranged? The evening promised a confrontation of not only familial ties, but her own hidden struggles. Could she finally embrace her past and step fully into her present self? The door loomed ahead, and with it, the end. Defining moment awaited, the chance for real healing, both for herself and perhaps another soul. The evening air was thick with anticipation as Sarah stepped outside the floral shop. Each footfall echoed her increasing apprehension. The streetlights flickered to life, their glow offering a warm contrast to the rising tension within her. Would her light extinguish the darkness of her unresolved past? With each block she traversed, she rehearsed phrases in her mind, questions she might ask. Yet the deeper she ventured into her thoughts, the murkier they became. What if the discussion opened old wounds, exposing raw edges that hadn't healed? She could feel her heart racing, a frenetic rhythm of hope and fear pulsating in her chest. Mark waited at their usual diner, a quaint little place that had served them well in their childhood. Familiarity might soften the sting, she thought. It was a reminder of better days, but as she pushed the door open, her stomach twisted in knots, the past hanging heavy in the air around them. He sat in a corner booth, his posture rigid, waiting for her. Their eyes locked, and an unspoken history flooded the space between them. She could see the trace of hurt etched on his face, mirroring her own emotions. After an awkward greeting, she slid into the booth across from him. "So, how's the shop?" Mark broke the tension first, but the inquiry felt superficial, a placeholder for the conversation they both knew was necessary. "It's good," Sarah replied, forcing a smile while feeling the weight of unspoken grievances. "I held a workshop yesterday. It really opened my eyes." He nodded, his blue eyes avoiding hers momentarily. "I'm glad it's working out for you." The conversation tiptoed around the more important issues at hand, their small talk bypassing the jagged edges of their history. Sarah noted the flicker of discomfort in his expression and decided to seize her moment. Vulnerability, a skill she was learning, beckoned her to dig deeper. "Mark, we can't keep pretending everything is fine," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I miss you, and I need to understand. I need to know how we got here." The tension coiled tighter. "You pulled away, Sarah. You chose not to share what was happening with you," he burst out, frustration breaking through the veil he'd woven around his emotions. His words were sharp, leaving her reeling. She was not ready for the confrontation that echoed her innermost fears. What was I supposed to say? That I was struggling while building a life I thought you'd disapprove of? "That is not what I meant," he shot back, the pain in his voice evident. "You left me out when I wanted to be in. All I saw was you shutting me out." Could it really be that simple? Isolation had bred an emotional chasm between them, each reluctant to reach across it for fear of rejection. Sarah's heart pulsed fiercely as she considered the walls built up around her.
Heart. Those walls had protected her, but now they hindered connection. She despised the thought of losing him again. "Maybe we both built these fortresses," Sarah said, her voice softer. "I want to change that. I want to be more open with you, if you're willing to rebuild." With each passing second, she felt the shifting dynamic in the room. It was as if the air electrified with the potential for renewal. Was this her opportunity? But what if the walls remained stubborn, refusing to yield? Silence enveloped them, thick with unresolved emotions. Mark's gaze lowered as he wrestled with his own fears. She saw the vulnerability glimmer in his eyes, a reflection of her own. They were bound by shared wounds, and perhaps the beginning of healing could form in this very moment. "Can we start fresh?" he asked, his voice cracking with vulnerability. "I want to know about your life, your struggles. I want to understand you better." As she met his plea with her gaze, Sarah felt a shift within herself too. It wasn't just about reviving their relationship. It was about redefining who she was, stepping away from the shadows. She was ready, but that readiness also came with fears. Could she truly maintain her newfound transparency? "I want that too," she confirmed, "but it's going to take time. I want us both to feel safe." They exchanged quiet breaths, the understanding palpable now, mingled with a future yet undefined. As they spoke about memories, hopes, and honest burdens, they began to lay a foundation again. Yet uncertainty hovered overhead, a persistent reminder of the past they couldn't escape entirely. As the conversation flowed into more personal stories, her thoughts drifted back to the cowboy and his son. The notion of being a catalyst for others whispered through her mind. Would she be able to hold the same space for Mark, an endeavor demanding even more courage than the workshop itself? And could opening up her past bring new life to their future? The edges of their renewed bond gleamed with promise, but a lingering question hung in the air. Would her journey of healing echo beyond this booth, into the lives of others she had yet to meet? As the night deepened, Sarah found herself standing at a crossroads, poised between her past and the vibrant possibilities of what lay ahead. Or would it call her back towards those walls again? A decision lingered like the lingering scent of her shop's blossoms, as she realized this was just the beginning of not only mending family ties, but also entwining her own narrative into something more profound. With Mark's newfound willingness, would the true exploration of their shared story yield transformations neither could predict? The morning sun broke through the window of Sarah's flower shop, filling the space with warmth and light, a fitting backdrop to the new chapter unfolding in her life. After every challenge, every vulnerability faced, she now stood at the threshold of possibility. Today marked not just another day, but the culmination of her journey towards personal and emotional empowerment. As her fingers danced over the vibrant petals, she reflected on how much had changed. The echo of laughter from the workshop still lingered in her ears. Participants had transformed in front of her, stories shared like fragrant blooms sprouting from dark soil. They had connected through their vulnerabilities, igniting a fire in her heart that had long been dimmed by uncertainty. With a renewed sense of purpose, Sarah gazed at the lingering remnants from yesterday's workshop. Petals and stems scattered across the tables reminded her of the lessons she had learned, not just about flowers, but about life and relationships. Each arrangement represented a piece of her journey, and standing tall amidst them was the realization that she too had begun to blossom. Jake and Cody had become integral parts of her new life, the challenges they faced frequently intertwining with her own. Jake's strength inspired her, reflecting her aspirations of transformation, while Cody's innocence guided her toward rediscovering joy. Their bond had grown into a partnership built on trust and shared stories, inviting her to nurture connections she once feared. In that moment of clarity, as scissors snipped away at stems, Sarah grasped her vision for the shop anew. Today wouldn't just be about flowers, but about creating a space where individuals could embrace their stories, just as she had done. Not merely a shop, but a heart of the community sanctuary that welcomed every emotion, joy, sorrow, grief, and hope, through the artistry of floral arrangements. The hours slipped by in a blur of creativity, each floral design infused with heartfelt intention. Customers flowed in and out, each encounter charged with new energy and connection. When the door chimed and Mark entered, a sense of anticipation surged through her veins. He looked different, more open, his demeanor lighter. They exchanged knowing smiles, both having started to build bridges they thought were lost. "Love the new look of the shop," Mark remarked, his eyes dancing over the colorful displays. "It feels alive, just like you." "Thanks. I've realized I want this place to reflect who I am now," she replied, her heart racing. "It's not just any flower shop, it's a living, breathing space where stories can unfold." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, rekindling their relationship like the fresh blooms around them. Together, they began brainstorming collaborative ideas, community workshops, storytelling nights, something that would invite others to step into the light, just as they had begun to do. As she engaged with her brother, a new strength blossomed within her, a testament to her personal achievement. No longer haunted by the shadows of self-doubt, Sarah realized that she had the power not only to heal herself, but also to help others face their darkness. In the shared stories of pain, she felt the warmth of hope and recovery spark between them. Later that day, as the sunlight slanted through the shop window, Jake arrived, his demeanor open and friendly. He carried with him a burst of excitement, a collaborative project they had been discussing. "I've spoken with a local school about organizing flower arrangement sessions with their students. They're thrilled at the prospect of engaging with nature while developing creativity." Sarah's heart soared. "That sounds incredible. We can plant seeds of creativity in the next generation," she exclaimed, the words tumbling out. "Imagine the change we could inspire just through floral arrangements." In that moment, their shared vision solidified, a promise they had made to each other and to the community. The doubts that once clouded her heart began to dissipate as she inhaled deeply, feeling grounded in her purpose. Sarah had stepped away from fear and embraced not only her identity as a flower shop owner, but also her role as a community nurturer. With every successful initiative and shared connection, Sarah felt herself becoming more confident, assured in her capabilities and worth. She no longer questioned her place in the world. She lived it with unwavering openness. As they worked on details for the upcoming sessions, she realized that she had not only conquered her fears, but had transformed them into driving forces of growth. The sun dipped low as Sarah cleaned up, casting a golden hue across the shop. With gratitude swelling in her heart, she thought of how far she had come. From struggling to keep her flower shop afloat to creating a communal space where people could flourish, she had proven to herself that embracing vulnerability paved the path to authentic strength. And so, as she flipped the sign to closed and locked the door behind her, she knew her journey had just begun, blooming more richly than she ever could have imagined. The storm of her past had washed away more than just her fears. It had revealed a vibrant future full of possibilities, where connection, healing, and personal achievement reigned supreme. Now it was time for her to carry this message beyond the doors of her shop, to invite others into their own beautiful transformations. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It really makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your engagement is essential. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.
You need to support the channel now because only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of these actions. Don't wait even one more second.